AITA for going off on my parents after they make me pay for my portion of a drama. My name is Lucinda. I am 28 years old, and I still cannot believe what happened last night. For 6 months, my parents have been taking half of my paycheck for rent while I stay with them after losing my apartment. Yesterday, at my dad's birthday dinner, they paid for everyone, including my unemployed brother, but made only me pay for my portion. $75 may not seem like much, but after contributing $800 monthly to their household, I felt humiliated and betrayed by my own family. If you have ever felt unfairly treated by those who should support you most, please subscribe, and let me know where you are watching from. I used to have a great life. After graduating with my marketing degree, I landed a job at a respected firm and secured a small but perfect apartment downtown. Everything was going according to plan until 3 months ago, when my building was sold for redevelopment. All tenants received eviction notices, giving us just 60 days to vacate. The housing market in our area is brutal, with prices skyrocketing and availability scarce. After weeks of unsuccessful searching, I reluctantly accepted my parents' offer to move back home temporarily. "Stay as long as you need, honey," my mother Marie said warmly. "This will give you a chance to save up for a better place." My father Harold nodded in agreement. "Family helps family. That is what we are here for." Their welcome seemed genuine, and I was grateful. The plan was simple: live with them for a few months while aggressively saving for a new apartment, hopefully one even better than what I had before. This unexpected setback could become an opportunity. That optimism lasted exactly 2 weeks. "Lucinda, we need to discuss house rules," my father announced one evening during dinner. "Since you are an adult with a good job, we expect you to contribute to household expenses." Of course, I agreed immediately. "I can help with groceries, utilities, whatever you need." My father exchanged glances with my mother. "We think it is fair if you contribute half of your paycheck for room and board." I nearly choked on my water. Half my paycheck. That is more than my previous rent. "You are getting meals included," my mother pointed out, "plus utilities, internet, everything. And we are family, not some random landlord." What could I say? I was stuck. The housing market had not magically improved in 2 weeks, and I had nowhere else to go. Reluctantly, I agreed, telling myself it was temporary. Just a few months of sacrifice before regaining my independence. That was 6 months ago. The arrangement might have been somewhat understandable if my parents were struggling financially, or if everyone in the household contributed equally. Neither was true. My parents own their home outright, both have comfortable pensions, and maintain an upper-middle-class lifestyle. More frustratingly, my older brother Frank lives there permanently and pays nothing. Frank is 32, unemployed for the past 2 years, and occupies the entire finished basement as his personal domain. When I moved in, I expected to use the guest room, but was informed it was now my mother's craft space. Instead, I was given my childhood bedroom, which had been converted into a storage area. I spent my first 2 days clearing out boxes just to make space for my bed. "Frank needs his space for his gaming equipment," my mother explained when I questioned the arrangement. "He is going through a tough time since his breakup, and gaming helps his mental health." His tough time has apparently lasted years, while my housing crisis was treated as a minor inconvenience. The contrast in our treatment became increasingly obvious. Frank ate whatever he wanted from the refrigerator, while I was questioned about any food I brought home. He stayed up all night playing online games, but I received complaints if I came home after 10. He contributed nothing to household chores, while I was expected to cook, clean, and drive my parents to appointments. Despite this, I tried to remain grateful and cooperative. I maintained a demanding job while helping around the house and surrendering half my income. I drove my father to doctor appointments, took my mother grocery shopping, and even fixed their computer problems. I became the family problem solver while simultaneously being treated like a burdensome teenager. My younger sister Amanda, 25, lives independently in a condo our parents helped her purchase last year. They covered her down payment as a graduation gift, despite her finishing college 3 years late. Amanda visits weekly for Sunday dinners, during which my parents praise her independence, while reminding me of my failure to maintain mine. Amanda is so responsible with her own place. my mother would say while I washed dishes. She has such a nice decorating touch. The irony that Amanda's independence was funded by parental generosity while mine was undermined by parental demands seemed lost on everyone but me. Each week, I watched as my sister received additional financial gifts while I surrendered half my earnings. Meanwhile, my parents began exerting increasing control over my life beyond finances. They questioned my work schedule, criticized my few social outings, and offered unsolicited advice about my career choices. When I mentioned applying for a promotion, my father scoffed. "You should be focusing on finding an apartment, not taking on more responsibility at work," he said dismissively. The controlling behavior extended to daily minutiae. My mother commented on my clothes. My father monitored my gas usage. Both questioned any package deliveries. The psychological toll grew alongside the financial one as I increasingly felt like an unwelcome tenant rather than a family member. "We just want what is best for you," became their mantra whenever I expressed frustration. But their actions suggested they wanted what was best for everyone except me. The stark reality that my financial contribution was about control rather than need became impossible to ignore. While I surrendered thousands of dollars to my parents, they funded Frank's gaming addiction and Amanda's home improvements without hesitation. I was not a daughter in need of temporary support. I was a source of income being exploited by the people who should have protected me most. The financial pressure continued mounting with each passing week. On paper, I should have been in a good position. My marketing job pays $70,000 annually, which in most circumstances would allow for comfortable living. However, between student loan payments, car expenses, and now surrendering half my paycheck to my parents, my savings had stagnated completely. Every payday followed the same degrading routine. I would receive my direct deposit on Friday morning, and by Friday evening, my father would approach me. "Lucinda, do not forget your contribution," he would say, as though I needed reminding of this significant financial burden. I would dutifully transfer $800 to his account, watching my carefully built savings plan collapse in real time. Meanwhile, Frank would emerge from the basement to ask for pizza money, which our parents provided without question. The original agreement had morphed over time, expanding beyond the already substantial rent payment. When the family Wi-Fi proved too slow for everyone's needs, I was expected to cover the upgrade cost. When streaming services raised their prices, those increases became my responsibility. When my parents' anniversary approached, I was reminded repeatedly about the gift expectations. "Your brother is not working right now, so we do not expect much from him," my mother explained after I questioned the double standard. "And Amanda already sent flowers." I tried discussing the situation rationally with my parents several times. Each attempt ended with emotional manipulation. "After all we have done for you," my mother would tear up. "We raised you, paid for your education, and now you complain about helping the family." The education they mentioned was partially funded by scholarships I earned along with the student loans I was still repaying. But contradicting this narrative only escalated tensions. The inequality became increasingly blatant. During one family dinner, my parents excitedly announced they had helped Amanda with the down payment for a new car. "She works so hard and deserves a reliable vehicle," my father beamed. The statement hung in the air like an accusation. What about me? Did I not work hard? Was my aging car with increasing repair needs less deserving of consideration? I said nothing, knowing any comment would be labeled as jealousy. At work, a potential promotion loomed on the horizon. It would mean more responsibility and eventually more pay, though my supervisor warned the raise would be delayed until the next quarter due to budget constraints. I accepted these terms, eager for professional advancement, even if the financial reward was postponed. The increased workload created new tensions at home. A major client crisis required overtime for 2 consecutive weeks, meaning I often returned home after my parents had already eaten dinner. "Family time is important," my mother scolded when I missed Sunday dinner to complete an urgent presentation. "Your priorities seem very confused lately." My father was less subtle. "We let you live here so you could get ahead financially, not so you could abandon your family obligations." The irony of claiming they were helping me financially while taking half my income was apparently lost on them. The breaking point nearly came when my car needed unexpected repairs. The mechanic quoted $1,200 to fix the transmission issue, a necessary expense, if I wanted to keep my transportation to work. This forced me to dip into my emergency savings further, delaying my escape from my parents' house. When I explained the situation, hoping for perhaps a 1-month reduction in my rent contribution, my parents were unsympathetic. That is why adults need to budget for emergencies. My father lectured as though I had been irresponsible rather than unlucky. The very next day, a package arrived for Frank. Inside was a new $300 gaming controller purchased by my parents because he has been feeling down lately. I swallowed my anger, reminding myself that this situation was temporary. I just needed to focus on saving, finding an affordable apartment, and escaping this increasingly toxic environment. But the financial strain was taking a toll on every aspect of my life. I began declining lunch invitations from coworkers, calculating every small expense, and living in constant anxiety about unexpected costs. Meanwhile, I watched as my brother and sister received ongoing financial support without expectations of reciprocity or gratitude. Each month, the gulf between how I was treated and how my siblings were treated grew wider. Each payday, my resentment deepened, as half my earnings disappeared into my parents' account, while they funded my brother's lifestyle and my sister's home ownership. Each family gathering became an exercise in restraint, as I listened to comments about financial responsibility, directed exclusively at me. I kept telling myself it would end soon. Just a few more months, just a little more saving, just until the housing market improved, just until my raise came through, just until things changed. I had no idea how dramatically things would indeed change, or that the catalyst would be a simple family dinner. The invitation came 2 weeks in advance. My father's 60th birthday would be celebrated at Costello's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, known for its elegant atmosphere and corresponding prices. "The whole family will be there," my mother announced. "Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. It will be a wonderful celebration." Despite my financial concerns, I was determined to make the evening special for my father. I spent hours searching for the perfect gift, eventually selecting a vintage watch similar to one his father had owned. It stretched my budget considerably, but family occasions matter, and I wanted to show my appreciation despite our strained relationship. The evening of the dinner, I dressed carefully in a navy blue dress I reserved for client presentations, applied makeup with precision, and arrived at the restaurant 30 minutes early to help with arrangements. I confirmed the reservation, made sure the table was properly set, and arranged for the staff to bring out a special dessert with candles at the end of the meal. The restaurant exuded elegance with soft lighting, crisp white tablecloths, and the gentle notes of classical music, creating an atmosphere of refined celebration. I felt a momentary pride at being part of organizing this special occasion, a brief respite from the tension that had characterized family interactions lately. Family members began arriving in clusters. My grandparents, elegant despite their advanced age, embraced me warmly. Aunts and uncles followed along with a handful of cousins. My sister Amanda arrived wearing a new dress she just picked up on a whim, according to her casual comment. My brother Frank showed up 15 minutes late wearing wrinkled khakis and immediately pulling out his phone beneath the table. Once everyone was seated, the evening proceeded pleasantly enough. Wine was poured, appetizers were shared, and conversation flowed. I took care to participate actively, asking my relatives about their lives and sharing appropriately edited versions of my own experiences. No one needed to hear about my housing struggles or financial constraints during a celebration. "Lucinda is always so helpful," my aunt remarked as I refilled water glasses. "Such a responsible young woman." My mother nodded proudly. "She certainly is. Always has been." The compliment felt hollow given the conversations we had been having at home, but I smiled and continued my self-appointed role as assistant host. Meanwhile, Frank remained engrossed in his phone, occasionally looking up to request breadsticks be passed his way. When it came time to order, I carefully examined the menu, mindful of prices. I selected a reasonably priced pasta dish and declined a second glass of wine. My careful budgeting contrasted sharply with my father's expansive gestures. "Frank, you should try the filet mignon," he encouraged. And Amanda, the lobster ravioli is excellent here. As our family of 15 enjoyed appetizers, entrees, and multiple rounds of drinks, I calculated the mounting bill with growing anxiety. A meal at Costello's for this many people would easily exceed $1,000. I wondered if my parents expected contributions from all adult children, or if this was their treat, as would be customary for a birthday celebration. The meal progressed through several delicious courses. My father received toast after toast celebrating his 6 decades. Photographs were taken, family stories were shared, and for brief moments, I remembered what it felt like to be part of a loving family, without financial tension underlying every interaction. When the dessert I had arranged arrived complete with sparklers rather than conventional candles, my father appeared genuinely touched. He squeezed my hand under the table, a rare moment of connection that made my careful planning worthwhile. After the birthday song and dessert, the inevitable moment arrived. The server presented the leather folder containing the bill to my father, who accepted it with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to handling large expenses. He reviewed it briefly before passing it to my mother with a nod. My mother stood slightly addressing the table with a smile. Harold is treating everyone tonight. His birthday gift to all of you is this lovely dinner. Relief washed over me. The anxiety about costs that had been building all evening dissipated. I leaned over to thank my father for his generosity. That is so kind, Dad. Thank you for a beautiful dinner, I said sincerely. His response froze the smile on my face. Except you, honey, he said loud enough for nearby family members to hear. You are working so you can cover yours. A confused silence fell over our section of the table. I felt heat rising to my face as I processed his words. Did my father just publicly exclude me from his generosity, while covering everyone else, including my unemployed brother? I do not understand, I said quietly, hoping to minimize the awkwardness. Your portion comes to $75, my mother explained matter-of-factly, as though this arrangement had been previously discussed. You can put your card in with ours. The shame burned through me like acid. In that moment, I became acutely aware of curious glances from extended family. My aunt's earlier comment about my responsibility now seemed prophetic in the cruelest way. I was not being treated as a daughter celebrating her father's birthday, but as an outsider expected to pay her way. With hands I forced to remain steady, I removed my credit card from my wallet and placed it in the folder without further comment. What could I say? Creating a scene during my father's birthday celebration would only compound the humiliation. The drive home was characterized by tense silence. My parents chatted about the evening as though nothing unusual had occurred, while I gripped the steering wheel and focused on controlling my emotions. $75 was simultaneously insignificant compared to the thousands I had contributed to their household, yet devastatingly symbolic of my status in the family. As we pulled into the driveway, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. Something fundamental had to change. I could no longer pretend the situation was temporary or acceptable. The birthday dinner had not created a new problem. It had simply illuminated the one that had been growing for months. Back at home, the living room lights created a deceptively warm glow as my parents settled into their usual evening routine. My father turned on the news while my mother sorted through birthday cards he had received. Frank disappeared into his basement domain without helping bring in any of the leftover cake or gift bags. The scene was so ordinary, so unchangingly normal, that it made the restaurant incident feel even more surreal. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching this tableau of family life that somehow excluded me despite my physical presence. For years, I had accepted my role as the responsible one, the reliable daughter who could be counted on to do the right thing. I had interpreted this as a compliment to my character, rather than recognition of how I was being used. The family dynamic suddenly appeared with perfect clarity, like a photograph finally coming into focus. My entire adult relationship with my parents had been built on unequal expectations and conditional love. The $75 dinner charge was merely a symptom of a much deeper problem. My internal struggle reached its breaking point when my parents began discussing the evening, their voices carrying easily into the kitchen, where I was mechanically washing dessert forks we had brought home. "Frank was such good company tonight," my mother remarked. "Everyone commented on how engaging he was." My father agreed. "He really made an effort for my birthday." Though I noticed Lucinda seemed unhappy toward the end of the evening. Always so serious lately. The blatant rewriting of reality after Frank spent most of the evening on his phone while I organized everything was the final straw. The fork I was washing clattered into the sink as I abandoned the pretense of household chores and walked deliberately into the living room. I seemed unhappy. My voice was calmer than I expected given the storm inside me. I wonder why that might be. My parents looked up surprised by my tone. My mother's expression immediately shifted to concern. "Lucinda, what is wrong? Are you not feeling well?" "I am feeling very clear-headed, actually," I replied. "I am wondering why after paying you $800 in rent this month alone, I was the only person expected to pay for my dinner tonight." The directness of my question created an immediate tension. My father muted the television, a sign this conversation had his full attention. "That is different," he said dismissively. "The rent is for your living expenses here. The dinner was a separate occasion." "A separate occasion where you paid for Frank, who contributes nothing to this household. You paid for Amanda, who does not even live here. You paid for extended family we see twice a year. But not for me." My mother shifted uncomfortably. "Honey, you have a good job. Frank is between opportunities right now, and Amanda is just getting established." "I have been getting established for 6 months while giving you half my income," I countered, my voice rising, despite my efforts to remain calm. "Do you have any idea what that has done to my savings, to my plans, to my future?" "We have given you everything." My father's voice took on the authoritative tone he had used throughout my childhood. "A roof over your head, food, utilities." "Which I pay for $800 a month would rent a nice apartment. But instead, I am in my childhood bedroom surrounded by storage boxes, while Frank has the entire basement rent-free." The mention of Frank seemed to intensify my father's defensiveness. "Your brother has different challenges. You cannot compare your situations." "Why not?" "We are both adults. We both live here. The difference is that I work 50-hour weeks, contribute financially, help around the house, and am still treated like a burden. He does nothing and is treated like a valued guest." My mother stood up, her expression hardening. "You should be grateful we took you in when you needed help. Many parents would not do that." "Grateful for the privilege of paying more than market rate rent to my own parents, while being treated worse than a tenant, for watching you fund Amanda's condo and car, while taking my money, for being humiliated in front of our entire family tonight." As the argument escalated, Frank emerged from the basement, drawn by the unusual volume of our voices. "What is going on up here? Some of us are trying to concentrate." "Concentrate on what, Frank? Your video games, while I work all day, pay half my income to live here, and still get charged for family dinners." His face darkened. "Not everyone measures everything in money, Lucinda. Some of us actually care about family." That statement from someone who contributed nothing yet received everything pushed me past rational argument. Years of resentment surfaced in a torrent of examples. "You want to talk about caring for family who drives dad to doctor appointments, who helps mom with grocery shopping? Who fixed the Wi-Fi, updated your phones, and still gets treated like an inconvenience?" My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication that excluded me as surely as the dinner payment had. My mother picked up her phone. "Amanda should be part of this conversation," she declared, putting the call on speaker. My sister's voice joined the fray from a safe distance. "What is happening? Is everything okay?" After a brief explanation heavily biased toward my ungrateful outburst, Amanda predictably sided with our parents. "Lucinda, they were just trying to help you. Maybe you should appreciate what you have instead of complaining." "Easy for you to say when they gave you a down payment on your condo while taking half my income," I retorted. "When was the last time they asked you to pay for anything?" The conversation devolved further, with four voices talking over each other. Through the chaos, a pattern emerged in my parents' justifications, one that explained so much about our family dynamic. We expect more from you because you can handle it, my father finally admitted. You have always been successful, always figured things out. Your siblings need more support. So I am punished for being responsible, for working hard, for doing what you raised me to do. It is not punishment, my mother insisted. It is just that you think you are better than the rest of the family now with your fancy degree and marketing job. You need to remember where you came from. The accusation stung with its unfairness. I had never acted superior, had only asked to be treated equally. The revelation that my success was viewed as a reason to take advantage rather than a source of parental pride was devastating. The final blow came from my father, his face flushed with anger, after nearly an hour of circular arguments. If you do not like it, leave. You are not special. This is our house, our rules. The words hung in the air, both challenge and dismissal. In that moment, looking at the family that had become unrecognizable to me, I made the decision that would change everything. I will, I said quietly. I will leave. That night, in my cramped bedroom surrounded by storage boxes and childhood relics, I finally allowed myself to cry. The tears were not just for the $75 or even the 6 months of financial exploitation, but for the shattering of my understanding of family. The people who should have been most invested in my success had instead resented it, used it against me, punished me for it. After the tears subsided, clarity emerged. This situation was not going to improve. The patterns were too deeply established, the roles too firmly entrenched. If I wanted change, I would have to create it myself. Despite the late hour, I opened my laptop and began researching housing options. My savings had been decimated by the arrangement with my parents, but I still had some emergency funds. It would not be enough for first and last month's rent plus security deposit on an apartment of my own, but perhaps there were other options. As I scrolled through rental listings far out of my immediate price range, I reflected on the family patterns that had led to this moment. Throughout childhood, I had been the responsible one, while my siblings received allowances for chores I was expected to complete without compensation. In high school, I worked part-time jobs while Frank received a car for simply passing his classes. In college, I balanced studies with work, while Amanda received full parental support. Despite changing majors 3 times, the pattern had continued into adulthood, with my achievements becoming reasons for additional expectations rather than celebration. When I landed my marketing job, my parents immediately asked about repaying them for college expenses they had covered. When Frank lost his 3rd job in 2 years, they created a basement apartment for him. When Amanda finally graduated, they funded her independence while undermining mine. Morning arrived after a restless night, bringing with it the cold reality of family breakfast. My parents maintained a pointed silence, occasionally exchanging meaningful glances. Frank displayed an unusual smugness, clearly viewing himself as the victor in last night's confrontation. No one mentioned the argument directly, but passive-aggressive comments flowed freely. Some people just do not understand family obligation, my mother remarked to no one in particular while pouring coffee. I ate quickly and left for work early, using the quiet of my office to make several important calls. My friend Jessica expressed shock when I explained the situation. They charge you rent half your paycheck and then made you pay at his birthday. That is insane, Lucinda, she exclaimed. No wonder you have seemed so stressed lately. When I admitted I needed to find new living arrangements immediately, Jessica did not hesitate. My spare room is yours for as long as you need it. No rent for the first month while you get back on your feet. The generosity from a friend contrasted sharply with the exploitation by family. By lunchtime, I had a plan. I would pack essentials while my parents were at their bridge club that afternoon, move to Jessica's immediately, and return for the remainder of my belongings once I was safely established elsewhere. That afternoon, I quietly filled 2 suitcases with clothing, important documents, and irreplaceable mementos. As I sorted through my belongings, I found photographs from happier times. High school achievements my parents had once proudly displayed cards signed with, "We are so proud of you." Each item raised the same question. When had I transformed from beloved daughter to financial resource? When had my achievements become weapons against me rather than sources of parental pride? I was placing the last of my jewelry in a travel case when my mother unexpectedly returned home early. She stood in the doorway of my room, taking in the open suitcases, with an expression that shifted rapidly from confusion to understanding to anger. "What do you think you are doing?" she demanded, though the answer was obvious. "What Dad suggested," I replied calmly. "I am leaving." Her tactics shifted immediately, tears replacing anger with remarkable speed. "How can you do this to us? After everything we have done for you, we need you here." "You need my paycheck," I corrected. "There is a difference." "That is a terrible thing to say to your mother." She gasped. "We took you in when you had nowhere to go," and charged me more than a landlord would while treating me worse than a tenant. The conversation cycled through guilt manipulation and finally outright anger as my mother realized her usual tactics were not working. By the time my father arrived home, having been summoned by urgent text, I had completed packing the essentials and called Jessica to confirm my arrival time. The final confrontation was brief but intense. My father's face reddened as he blocked the doorway. "So this is how you repay our generosity, by sneaking out like a thief?" "I am not taking anything that is not mine," I pointed out, and there was nothing generous about our arrangement. "You are making a mistake you will regret," he warned. "Family should come first." The irony of his statement after months of demonstrating that I came last in family priorities was not lost on me. I agree. Family should come first. All family members treated with equal respect. With those words, I wheeled my suitcases past him and out to my car. The mixture of emotions was overwhelming. Grief for the relationship I had thought we had, anger at the exploitation I had endured, fear of the uncertain future, but predominantly an unexpected sense of freedom. As I drove away from my parents' house, the weight of expectations and inequity began to lift. I had 2 suitcases, a reliable if aging car, a temporary place to stay, and most importantly, my full paycheck going forward. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, it felt like my own. The spare room in Jessica's apartment was half the size of my childhood bedroom, but felt twice as spacious without the weight of family tension. A simple twin bed, small dresser, and desk filled the practical space, but the emotional relief of my new environment was immeasurable. "Stay as long as you need," Jessica insisted, helping me unpack my limited belongings. "No rush, no pressure, and definitely no rent for the first month." That first evening, sitting on Jessica's comfortable couch with takeout Chinese food and unguarded conversation, I felt myself beginning to relax for the first time in months. The constant tension of walking on eggshells, of being simultaneously essential and unwelcome, had dissipated, replaced by the simple acceptance of friendship without conditions. The financial recalculation began immediately. Without surrendering half my income to my parents, my budget expanded significantly. True, I would eventually need to pay rent to Jessica or find my own place, but even market rate apartments would cost less than what I had been paying my family. "Let me get this straight," Jessica said as we reviewed my new budget. "You were paying $800 to sleep in a storage room, and they still made you cook, clean, and chauffeur them around. That is not rent. That is exploitation." The following day brought the expected barrage of text messages. My mother alternated between guilt trips and anger. "How could you abandon us like this? We are devastated. Your father cannot sleep knowing you are out there alone." My father's messages were briefer but more cutting. "Very disappointed in your selfishness. This is not how we raised you." Frank contributed his perspective with predictable maturity. "Way to bail on family responsibilities, real classy." I responded minimally, establishing that I was safe but not engaging with the emotional manipulation. The space allowed me to see more clearly how unhealthy the dynamic had become. My coworkers noticed the change in my demeanor immediately. "You seem lighter somehow," my supervisor commented during our weekly check-in. "More focused." The truth was, without the constant drain of family tension and financial pressure, I had more emotional and mental energy for everything else. My work performance improved, my sleep deepened, even my appearance changed as stress lines began to fade from my face. 2 weeks after moving out, I received welcome professional news. The promotion I had been working toward was officially approved along with the promised salary increase to begin immediately rather than next quarter. Your exceptional handling of the Marshall campaign moved up the timeline, my supervisor explained. The client specifically requested you for their next project. With increased income and reduced expenses, my financial situation improved rapidly. I met with a financial advisor who helped create a solid savings plan that would put me in position to consider my own apartment within 3 months. Your situation is actually quite good now, the advisor noted, reviewing my updated budget. Without that significant drain on your resources, you are back on track much faster than most clients I see. Apartment hunting began as a tentative exploration, but quickly became serious as I discovered several promising options within my budget. The market remained challenging, but with Jessica's generous timeline and my improved financial position, I could be selective rather than desperate. After touring 7 potential apartments, I found one that felt right. The one-bedroom unit was in a well-maintained building with reasonable amenities located close enough to work for an easy commute, but in a more affordable neighborhood than my previous place. Signing the lease felt monumental. As I provided proof of income credit check and first and last month's rent, I recognized this was not just a housing contract, but a declaration of independence. This apartment represented taking back control of my life and finances on my own terms. Meanwhile, my parents' attempts to reconnect continued evolving from angry demands to subtle negotiations. My mother's calls became less accusatory, more concerned with my well-being, though always with an undercurrent of expectation that I would eventually come to my senses and return. I established clear boundaries from the beginning. I am happy to maintain a relationship with you, but it needs to be based on mutual respect, I explained during one difficult phone conversation. That includes respecting my decision to live independently. My father remained largely silent during these calls, occasionally taking the phone to deliver brief formal inquiries about my work and health before passing it back to my mother. His pride had been wounded not just by my departure, but by my direct confrontation of the unfair treatment. The family narrative about my departure took predictable shape. According to Frank, who continued to communicate with mutual cousins, I had abandoned the family because I was too selfish to help out during tough times. The irony of this characterization, coming from someone who contributed nothing while receiving everything, was not lost on me, but I chose not to engage in family politics. Surprisingly, it was Amanda who reached out with something approaching understanding. I never realized how differently they treated us, she admitted during a coffee meeting without our parents' knowledge. The expectation that you would contribute half your income while I got help with my condo down payment, it is not fair. This acknowledgement from the sister who had always benefited from the imbalance marked the beginning of a more authentic relationship between us. For the first time, we spoke as adults, rather than as roles in the family drama. The process of setting boundaries extended beyond family to my work life as well. I began declining unreasonable requests for overtime, established more structured client communication protocols, and advocated for appropriate recognition of my contributions. Each small act of self-respect reinforced my growing understanding that value is not determined by how much you sacrifice. At Jessica's suggestion, I began working with a counselor to understand the patterns that had led me to accept such unequal treatment for so long. Through these sessions, I recognized how family dynamics had shaped my tendency to overcompensate, to seek approval through sacrifice, to measure my worth by my utility to others. Financial abuse often goes unrecognized, especially in families, my counselor explained. The exploitation of your success and responsibility was a form of control, not the normal parent-child relationship your family claimed it to be. This framework helped me understand why the birthday dinner incident had affected me so deeply. It was not about $75, but about the public acknowledgement of my unequal standing in the family, the visible manifestation of a pattern of exploitation that had become normalized behind closed doors. With this growing clarity came the strength to maintain boundaries, even when guilt and family pressure intensified. Each week of financial independence reinforced my resolve. Each small decision made on my own terms built confidence in my new path forward. 6 months after leaving my parents' house, I stood in the center of my new apartment, surrounded by furniture. I had carefully selected artwork that reflected my taste and a sense of home I had created on my own terms. The small one-bedroom unit was not luxurious by conventional standards, but to me, it represented achievement, independence, and self-respect. My financial situation had stabilized completely. Without the drain of giving half my income to my parents, I had established an emergency fund, begun contributing significantly to retirement accounts, and even started a separate savings fund for future goals. The promotion at work had brought not just increased salary, but greater recognition of my talents, leading to leadership opportunities I might have declined when overwhelmed by family demands. Contact with my parents had evolved into a carefully managed relationship with clear boundaries. Sunday dinners became monthly lunch meetings in neutral restaurants where we each paid for our own meals. Phone calls were scheduled rather than random intrusions, with topics kept to neutral ground rather than financial interrogations or guilt trips. My father had never directly apologized for the unequal treatment, but small acknowledgments emerged through changed behavior. When I mentioned work stress during one lunch, instead of dismissing it as unimportant, he actually asked follow-up questions about the situation. When I described a weekend trip I had planned, instead of questioning the expense, he offered suggestions for places to visit. My mother took longer to adjust to our new dynamic, but eventually accepted that our relationship would be on equal adult terms or would not exist at all. Her attempts to reestablish the previous pattern of control through guilt were met with calm but firm redirection. "I understand you miss having me at home," I would say when she hinted at how empty the house felt. "But I am happier and healthier with my own space, and that should matter to you as a parent who wants what is best for me." Frank's situation remained largely unchanged. He continued living in the basement rent-free, though my departure had apparently increased expectations for his minimal household contributions. Without me to handle everything, my parents had begun requiring at least token efforts from him, a development that led to occasional complained texts about how everything changed after you left. My relationship with Amanda deepened significantly once removed from the competitive dynamic our parents had fostered. Without the constant comparisons and uneven treatment, we discovered common interests and perspectives that had been obscured by family politics. She began questioning patterns in her own relationship with our parents, particularly their financial involvement in her life and the subtle control it represented. "I never saw it before," she admitted during one of our regular sister dinners. "But they do use money to control us, just in different ways. They fund me but monitor how I spend it. They took your money and made you feel selfish for wanting independence." This growing awareness among all family members, however reluctant or incomplete, represented a shift in the long-standing dynamic. My departure had disrupted patterns established over decades, forcing a reevaluation of relationships that had been taken for granted. At work, my increased confidence manifested in a leadership style characterized by clear boundaries and mutual respect. I advocated for junior team members, established more equitable workloads, and created a collaborative environment that contrasted sharply with the exploitation I had experienced at home. "You have really come into your own these past months," my supervisor noted during a performance review. "The team responds to your leadership because you value their contributions while respecting their boundaries." New relationships entered my life as well. Friendships and potential romantic connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation or utility. Without the constant drain of family tension, I had emotional energy to invest in connections that enhanced rather than depleted my well-being. The journey from resentment to self-respect had not been simple or linear. There were still moments of doubt, still occasional pangs of guilt engineered by years of conditioning to put others' needs before my own. The difference now was that I recognized these feelings as echoes of unhealthy patterns rather than valid guidance. Financial independence had proven to be the foundation of emotional independence. By reclaiming control of my resources, I had established the practical ability to set and maintain boundaries. The $75 dinner charge that once symbolized my unequal standing in the family now represented the moment I recognized my own worth enough to demand better treatment. The deepest lesson emerged gradually. Family should support growth, not punish it. Success should be celebrated, not exploited. Love should elevate, not diminish. These realizations did not sever family ties, but transform them, creating the possibility for relationships based on mutual respect, rather than obligation or control. On a quiet Sunday evening, as I prepared for the week ahead, in the peaceful sanctuary of my own space, I reflected on the journey of the past year, from losing my apartment to finding myself, from financial exploitation to genuine independence, from accepted inequality to demanded respect. The path had been painful but necessary, the destination worth every difficult step. Family remained important in my life, but on new terms. The peace of creating chosen family alongside birth family had given me a more complete understanding of belonging, one based on mutual care rather than obligation. The financial freedom to walk away from unhealthy dynamics had given me the emotional freedom to establish healthier ones. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family expectations and your own well-being? How did you handle the guilt and pressure that often comes with setting boundaries with loved ones? I would love to hear your stories in the comments. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember that your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice, but by how authentically you live.